Okay, so yeah, if you could exit here, and then go to the sidebar on the home page. And it's
All right, ready to finish up?
okay, so it looks like you guys have gotten your SAT.
Are we live streaming yet? Oh, we're on. Awesome. All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for those that are watching on the live stream as well. We are back for our fourth Unconfiscatable. In the same room every time. This is the D Hotel. There is a historical reason for doing this event at the D Hotel. The owner of the D Hotel and Circa, same owner, he will be here at 11 o'clock. We're going to do a little fireside chat. The D Hotel has been a Bitcoin supporter all the way back to like 2014. They've had a Bitcoin ATM down in the casino floor. So we try to support all businesses that use Bitcoin as early as possible. So we continue to bring this event to the D Hotel. Thank you so much for coming back. How many of you played poker last night? Raise your hand. Is our winner here? Where's Timo? Second place is here. Oh yeah, he's managing a booth. Hope you guys had fun at the poker tournament. Those of you that came out, thank you so much for coming to the pre-party as well. I'm also searching for Giacomo. Giacomo is going to be the first guy up. There he is. We do have a live stream. Giacomo needed... Oh, you found another belt, but you got a big belt with the Bitcoin logo. Giacomo will be our first keynote speaker. It is being live streamed, so let's make sure your pants don't drop on the live stream, though we may get extra views for Giacomo. The B is going to be upside down, but good job.
The real
That's
problem
okay.
with my pants falling in live stream is that among your sponsors, there is no Wasabi, and I have Wasabi underpants. So they would get free sponsorship without paying you, so that's the problem.
I know. We're actually going to have a couple of debates. We're going to have some interesting debates today, tomorrow. Man, one day, will there ever be a Wasabi versus a Samurai debate on stage? Is that ever going to happen?
Unlikely.
Maybe in a UFC stage? All right, guys. A couple of announcements. Tonight is the carnivory dinner. Check in with the desk. You'll need a gold bracelet to get into that carnivory dinner. It's an amazing steakhouse. It's going to overlook the entire downtown. It's rented out the whole restaurant. It's going to be awesome. I want to say thank you to all the staff. You're going to see people walking around with yellow T-shirts. Those are our volunteers. Thank you so much for the staff. Thank you for organizing. Mel is around here somewhere. Mel's been organizing it as Muzz. If Muzz is around here somewhere as well, Muzz was organizing this the prior few years, got us going, and here we are again. I don't know. I'm good on live streams, but on stage, I'm like, what else do I need to announce? Otherwise, we may even kick off our first presentation a little bit early. And then this way, because I know Giacomo's presentations. Speaking of which, where are your slides?
Do you have slides or anything? Yes, I sent it to you yesterday.
Okay, so I'll connect it to my computer then, and we'll run it to mine.
So in the meantime, I can tell everybody.
Giacomo will continue with the introduction to the conference while we get the slides up. And we'll get the event rolling.
No, okay. So this is not very Bitcoin focused, but the reason I don't have my belt is that yesterday I picked another guy's backpack instead of mine from the flight. So I had a few choices right now.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And the first choice was to use a USB cable to keep my pants on. That was debated by other speakers, but it was not optimal. The other choice was to show you my wasabi underpants, which will trigger a lot the Scamurai people. So there was no good solution. But luckily, I found the jiu-jitsu card of this guy. So this guy was also a jiu-jitsu champion. So that's not the best guy you want to steal the backpack from. But anyway, I think I will be fine. So. First of all, the reason that Tone received my presentation just earlier yesterday night is that, as always, I have a hard time finding the presentation topic until the very day before. And as always, my go-to solution to find the topic for the presentation is fighting with people on Twitter. So you have it?
Yeah, I have. I just have to change. Maybe duplicate screen? I have too many monitors.
So in this case, I was fighting about the concept of censorship. Some of you may know that there is the current debate about Bitcoin censorship. Okay. So.
By the way Giacomo does his presentations like the day before is similar to how we do the agenda for this event. Like all the speakers are like texting me like for weeks, when is the agenda? I'm like, usually the day before. Because like people switch around, people get sick, people miss their flights because there was incidents in Las Vegas. How many of you got stuck at the airport yesterday for like 2 hours? How many of you's plane got diverted? Yeah, this is a rough, it's been a rough week here in Vegas for unfortunate incidents. But yeah, go on. Oh, let me see if this works.
Does it?
It should. It vibrated.
So this is a zero knowledge conference. You only know yet. Okay, it's working.
It's working.
Okay. So, okay, the title of the presentation is this censorship? I was fighting on Twitter yesterday with Kalle.
Only yesterday?
Only yesterday. This is yesterday with Kalle. And, well, I never fight with people except for yesterday. He tried to sell me the JPEG of this discussion, but I just right-clicked it. And basically, what is this fight about? This fight is about something that happened recently, last week actually. In South Carolina, some people that are here today as well, and you will see them on stage, were launching a new mining pool called Ocean. One of them is not here on stage, is Jack Dorsey, but the others are. Bob will be on stage, I will be on stage, Luke will be on stage, and others like Mechanic. First of all, I'm completely unbiased about this. Yes, it's true that I was at the presentation, But except for that, yeah, it's true I'm a very small investor, but except of that, it's true I am in the board of that company. And but except for, well, it's true they are sponsoring this conference, to be honest. But except for them, except for that, I will try to be as unbiased as possible. So this pool started. They have a few features like transparent block template. You can see the block template before you put your work in, non-custodial payout for miners above some threshold, and a very ambitious roadmap to something like Stratum V2, a Lightning Network payout. So it's very cool. But you know, people don't like to focus on cool things because there is not much drama in cool things. So this was mostly the discussion the days after that. No, don't censor my dick butts. So what is this about? This is about basically the fact that this pool is using another implementation of Bitcoin Core, a fork of Bitcoin Core maintained by the main developer of the pool, Yugdashir, and this implementation is expanding the mempool filters of Bitcoin Core to some other anti-spam measures. I will discuss all of these later to explain exactly what I mean. But my main focus is not about what is happening technically. My main focus is about the use of the word censorship. You may think that only people that look like this are using the word censorship, you know, like typical shitcoiner guy, or girl, or I mean, whatever. But that's not true. Even people that are friends, and I think that the people that I technically respect, are using the word censorship. For example, in this debate, there is we are stuck with this. Okay. In this debate, there is Peter Todd, who of course is a legit guy because he was a speaker at Unconfiscatable. And you know that Tone only picks legit guys as speaker. No, I'm joking. There are a lot of shitcoiners here. But anyway.
They usually turn shitcoining after they speak here.
Right.
We've had a long history.
But Peter is a good guy. But he's using the term censorship, speaking about mempool filtering of stuff, which I find very triggering because I think that's a very serious terminological confusion. And indeed, many people are basically objecting, like other core developers are saying there's no censorship of anything. This is just the mempool rules and the consensus rule. There is no censorship. And to be clear, I'm not in this presentation. I'm not making the case that Peter is technically wrong about the usefulness of this mempool filtering, because there are other people that I respect, like Andrew Postra wrote a beautiful message about the fact that there is no sensible way to prevent people from storing arbitrary data in the witness without incentivizing even worse behavior and non-breaking legitimate use cases. So even people that I respect, and I think I may even agree with this, and disagree with Luke about this. But the main point is that calling this censorship is creating a huge terminological problem and a huge confusion about what even means to be censoring something. In particular, for example, the same people that are complaining about censorship of dick butts in blocks mined by Ocean are the same people that are cheering for other mining pool. For example, Luxor. Luxor created one block which was 4 megabyte big, and in this block, Luxor excluded many legit Bitcoin transactions in order to put in this Bitcoin transaction with dick butts or wizard or whatever that was not paying any fee to the workers. So this mining pool censored a lot of legit transaction because the things they actually included were paid to them and not to the workers of Band. So is this censorship or is that censorship? I think, I mean, here Grumbels is also using the quotes because this is not censorship either. This is just another way to select transaction. Ocean is selecting transaction based on the technical merits of Knot's implementation, while Luxor is selecting transaction based on the fact that spammers are paying them of Ben to select transaction, robbing the workers. So it's still not censorship, it's just selection. But let's go away from a moment from this Ocean drama. Let's take like a larger view here. Just 1 week ago, there was this other discussion about censorship. Oh yeah, sorry, well, this is just, so Now, so maybe you can think that the reason that I don't call Ocean's transaction selection censorship is because I dislike ordinals and inscription. That's true. I think they are retarded. This is a shameless plug of my talk at BTC Prague, which is titled "Ordinals Are Retarded." If you haven't seen it, I suggest you to see it because I think I made the case that they are retarded in a very technical sense. So this is not an insult. This is a technical consideration. Watch the talk and you will understand. But even if we just ignore this retarded thing for a while, let's just discuss censorship in Bitcoin in general. There is another debate from last week, which is this other mining pool, F2 pool, that was discovered. It was not clear, it was not transparent about that, but somebody discovered that they were excluding from the blocks all the mempool transactions that were included in an OFAC sanctioned list. So when some user discovered that even if these transactions were paying fee, this pool, F2 pool, was excluding the transaction. So somebody called them out, and Chun said, you know, I have every right not to confirm any transaction from Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, don't I? People disagreed with him, and so he said that we will disable the transaction filtering patch for now. Notice how he's using the term filtering and not censoring, and I will go back to this, until the community reaches a more comprehensive consensus on the topic. So it's like there is a lot of debate about the fact that we want to actually censor Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping from Bitcoin, and we are waiting for this debate to end. That's not true. I mean, the main point of Bitcoin was to make possible for Adolf Hitler to send money to Osama bin Laden. That was the stated goal of Bitcoin. But anyway, some people, I mean, when Chun understood that this debate is actually already over, he deleted all the tweets, so you can only find screenshots right now. Is this censorship, deleting your tweets? I don't know, maybe it's self-censorship in this sense. But let's go on. And I found a lot of, so what, you know about anti-maximalist, right? So there are shitcoins, and there is a reaction to shitcoin, which is called Bitcoin maximalism, which is somebody saying, I mean, I don't like shitcoins, don't rug pull me, and don't lie about blockchain technology. And then there is the reaction to the reaction, which is our people that are banking on the fact that every time there is an opinion, you can actually bank on the contrarian opinion. These guys are the anti-maximalists. And I just read, also last week, one of the best uses of the word censorship ever from an anti-maximalist. In this case, this is the guy that wrote an article, The Culture of Bitcoin Culture. And there is this beautiful, there are two beautiful passages. The passage goes like, so when I joined Blockstream, I was basically presenting my idea about the fact that NFTs are actually good and self-custody is actually bad. But I was looking forward to having interesting debates, defending my nuanced views, while learning the more sophisticated critiques and perspective of my colleagues and peers at other Bitcoin companies. In practice, that never really happened. Mostly I was politically ignored, like a fart on a Zoom call. This is beautiful. This is like Blade Runner, you know. Everything is like a fart on a Zoom call. It's beautiful. But later in the article, this guy is saying, for a community that is theoretically funded on a shared philosophy of censorship resistance, the Bitcoin cultists are remarkably eager to suppress dangerous ideas. So basically, people ignoring me because my ideas are as interesting as a fart on a Zoom call are censoring me if they don't debate my idea. So you can see that now the point, the sentence censorship resistance, the word censorship is basically completely desemantized. There is no shared meaning to it. And I think it's worth it to discuss a little bit. For example, another good example, Bitcoiners are now very, very passionate about Nostr. I also am. I don't like the technology very much. I think it will never scale. It will never remain decentralized. But the movement is great. The ostrich is great. The purple color. I love the movement, even if I'm skeptical about the technology. Still, on Nostr, some people started to think, okay, but what happens if we start to receive posts with child pornography? Okay, that's no problem. The relays will just filter them out. Okay, but then what if the relays will filter out information about vaccines and hydrochlorine because it's not socially acceptable. So you see, it's not as trivial. If you go one way, I mean, censorship resistant is a very, very hard choice to make because it means censorship resistance. So is a rely selecting what, there was a moment in which Nostr was full of Chinese porn bots, and was that censorship to remove them from relay? That's an interesting question. Nostr was created also was also funded in a way by Jack Dorsey, that was previously the head of Twitter. And Twitter was at the center of many debates, also among Bitcoiners, on a supposed censorship. And now everything is solved because finally free speech maximally Elon Musk took it over, and now there is no censorship anymore. Wrong. This is a tweet by Elon Musk that said, by free speech, I simply mean that which matches the law. I'm against censorship that goes far beyond the law. If people want less free speech, they will ask government to pass laws to that effect. Therefore, going beyond the law is contrary to the will of the people. So even now, I mean, there is a lot of confusion here, right? Is the government always the will of the people? Is the will of the people always right? I mean, if we are in a park and there is a girl and 4 aggressive men, well, that is very sexist. Let's do the opposite. There is a good-looking boy like me in a park and 4 very, very aggressive women, and they want to rape me. So locally, the will of the people is 4 against 1. They will rape me. But that's not just. That's not ethically correct. Because, I mean, I should decide over my body, not the will of the people. So there's still a lot of confusion. Elon Musk is not exactly the most consistent free speech philosopher we have out there. So let's move to something else. Bitcoiners knew about, we had the problem with the concept of censorship even way before. You remember this man? This man was claiming 2 things. One, the thing that really triggered him was the fact that eliminating discussion about block size increase in different Bitcoin implementation by Reddit, subreddit Bitcoin, that was censorship. So I would say that 99% of Roger's crusade against Bitcoin and Bitcoin Core and for Bcash and everything was because it was censored on Reddit. And many people were answering, no, we are not censoring. We made a policy. You can still open another subreddit, and indeed, he did, /BTC. But if you stay on mine, I will give the rules for my Reddit. You can still go elsewhere, but if you stay on my Reddit, this is the rule that you can criticize because maybe you don't think it's a smart rule or you don't think it's an effective rule, but it is the rule. It's not censorship. You can still talk, and in fact, he did talk. Oh boy, he did talk. But there was also the point that Roger was also making the point that Bitcoin enforcing the block size that Satoshi Nakamoto included as part of the consensus is censorship. So there were a lot of speeches. I remember Scaling Bitcoin Canada 2015, and there was this other guy, Reason, saying that Blockstream employees were censoring Bitcoin by forbidding 10 megabyte blocks instead of 1. So is that censorship? Is your node enforcing a block size on the blocks of Bitcoin a form of censorship? That was the case stated by that. So you see, there is a lot of confusion. So let's go back to the main topic. Is this censorship? Let's try to approach this point from a very broad kind of thing. So another shameless plug. I try to discuss this a little bit in another speech of mine, but very briefly. It's called Money Laundering is Beautiful in Baltic Honey Badger. This is a wrong screenshot. The actual title of the speech was Good Morning, Money Laundering is Beautiful. But anyway, I have this screenshot here. And I just did make a small, some few words about censorship, but I didn't enter any minute. So I will today. So the problem, so one problem you may have with my attempt to define censorship is that you can say, okay, censorship is just a word. As long as we agree on it, there is no problem. This can be censorship or not. Who cares? I think we should care, because even if we can define words as an agreement, as a consensus among us, this consensus must have some characteristic to be useful. First, it must be internally consistent. So if you say that Bitcoin Core filtering out transactions that pay a high fee but have more than 80 bytes of op return from the mempool. If you say that that is not censoring, then you cannot consistently say that Bitcoin Notes, which is filtering out transaction with 42 bytes of op return, is actually censorship. You see, it's not logically consistent. You should use the same sentence for both or for neither, right? So if you say that imposing a mempool filter like Bitcoin Core does, so all the mempool, all the pool out there, they do it, and as Knots in Ocean does, if that's censorship, then even imposing consensus about block validity is a form of censorship. It's just that you are censoring blocks that there may be a block that will pay 1 million Bitcoin as a fee, but this block will be 5 megabytes large. So your node will just exclude this block from mempool and from everything else, from your chain. Is this censorship? So you see, the main problem is to be internally consistent. But even when you are internally consistent, you must also be externally consistent with everything else that we have said in the past about that word. So, for example, let's say that every kind of choice that Bitcoin Core makes when we filter transactions, blocks, for standardness, for validity, for all the other characteristics, let's call all of that censorship. Okay, we can, but then we cannot say anymore that Bitcoin is a tool for censorship resistance. Actually, what Bitcoin becomes in this version of the word is a tool for enforce censorship, basically, for enforcing censorship. Everything Bitcoin does is to exclude some transactions that are not valid and to include others that are valid. That's the whole point of the blockchain of Bitcoin or everything. So either we say that the whole point of Bitcoin is censorship, but that's basically a meaningless use of the term, or we have to find a term that is consistent with the fact that we want censorship resistance. The other point is that something must be maximally consistent over time. There is the trick, especially used recently by the woke culture, but even in the past by many many totalitarian regimes, to change very fast the meaning of the words. So words are consensus, and we agree about that. But if I change the meaning of a word very, very, very often, then you are forced to basically follow me and to stay up to date with my arbitrary decisions. So that gives me power. So we decide that today the word canary is racist because it's yellow, like an Asian guy. So that's racist. So in order to know exactly that you are not racist, you have to follow my newest article and to follow my new terminological decision. So a better way to define words, if defining words in a way that is maximally consistent over time. We know the languages have to change, but it's better we don't change too fast. So what were we using as a term for censorship, as a meaning for censorship a few years ago in Bitcoin, should hopefully be the same terminology we apply today about censorship, changing one day to the other. So 1 week ago, Bitcoin Core eliminating from the mempool 81 byte op return was not censorship. Now Bitcoin Notes eliminating that is censorship. That's not consistent over time. We are just changing the definition on the fly. And of course, it's also better if a definition is maximally consistent over people. So if more and more people agree, because otherwise you are talking with yourself. If you talk with, if you use a terminology that nobody else has used, then you're basically out of consensus. Like if you run a shitcoin that nobody else uses. You're free to do that, but it's stupid. You are losing money because nobody else is understanding you. So let's go to Wikipedia. I find the Wikipedia, so if we want to clarify something, let's use Wikipedia, right? It was so comical when yesterday I tried to use Wikipedia to define censorship. Well, first of all, because, I mean, censorship is a very serious topic, like Socrates was killed for his speech in Greece, so like people has been killed for censorship. People have been sent to gulags for censorship, yet what Wikipedia authors selected for censorship was basically David's Peewee covered by, it's probably not the most epic choice they could do. Basically, it's like Dick Bucks all again. Like, this was the main problem of censorship. But the really funny thing is that this article about censorship was flagged because it contains wizard word, vague phrasing that often accompanies biased or unverifiable information. Such statements should be clarified or removed. And then the definition of censorship here is any suppression of information conducted by governments, private institutions, and other controlling bodies. So private institutions like Wikipedia, if they remove any information, that's censorship. But they should remove some words because they are wizard words and they should be removed. But link above, Wikipedia policy concerning censorship. See, Wikipedia is not censored. So it's a mess, right? It's a mess. They don't even know what they're writing about. They are going short circuit in the brain while they write down the article. Let's move to Wiki Dictionary. It's a little bit better. So the first meaning for censorship is the use of a state or group power to control freedom of expression or press, such as passing laws to prevent media from being published or propagated. And then historical, the role of the censor, which was a state magistrate in Rome. Basically, it was a guy in Rome that was basically was sending people to jail for speech. So that's a very, very clear meaning of the word censorship. A Roman state employee sending people to jail because of what they said. This is a very clear meaning for censorship. So we can have many, so the most trivial way that somebody, the most trivial criteria that somebody uses when they say censorship is basically bad versus good. So do I like dick butts? If yes, then filtering them out is censorship. If no, then filtering them out is not censorship. This definition doesn't scale very well across people and across time, because my tastes, in fact, of dick butts can change over time. I hope not. But also, my tastes can be different from yours across people. So this is not a very good way to define censorship or versus filtering, because nobody agrees that everything is bad. Maybe, I mean, F2Pool think that Vladimir Putin sending money is bad. I may agree, but I can agree on other things. I mean, it's very vague as a definition. A second one can be global versus local. So there is somebody making the point that is like, so let's assume that I have a newspaper. Is it censorship if you send me a poetry and I don't want to publish that poetry on my front page because I don't like it? That's not censorship, right? So the distinction will be, if I actively prevent you from getting your shitty poetry everywhere, anywhere, that's censorship. If I leave you to the challenge to spread your poetry as far as you can, but I'm not allowing your poetry in my thing locally, that's not censorship. So this would be the argument. If a single block is excluding a transaction, that's not censorship. But if all blocks are, that's censorship. Still, that means that the consensus rules of Bitcoin are censorship because everybody are enforcing them everywhere. So another possible meaning is active versus passive. So if I refuse to publish your poetry, I'm just passively refusing to do something for you. You are asking me to do something, and I say no. While the Roman guy throwing people in jail, he was actively going around searching for people to throw in jail. So this is possibly a little bit better, maybe this definition, but still is not very clear. Let's try to improve. So this is very frequent. This is like a version of bad versus good, which is more democratically based. So if something is unpopular, then filtering out, that's good. That's not censorship. If something is popular, then filtering out, that's censorship. So that's the argument of people that say, if this stuff has a demand, a market demand, then you cannot exclude them from your node because that's censorship. If there is not market demand, this is actually good, which we basically go back to the 4 women in the park. So democracy, right? The rule of the majority. Something is good if more people agree that it's good. Or you can also have old versus new. For example, many debates about Twitter where the fact that I joined Twitter, so I joined Twitter with some term of service, which is clearly stated. This terms of service says that I can write the word vex without being immediately cancelled and banned. If that changes over time, that's not fair because I started to contribute my content to Twitter under some assumption, and now you are suddenly changing the assumption after I already contributed my content to you. So this is you see that we are going somewhere. This is a kind of objective definition of censorship, changing the rules ex post. Like, for example, Bitcoin Core was censoring op return over 42 bytes. Then Bitcoin Core changed the rule to allow 80 bytes, but Bitcoin Knots, there was a fork, did not. So in this case, it's a matter of expanding the filter definition, but it's still not censorship. There is also the idea of public versus private. So somebody says, if your company, so if you are the government and you're filtering out something, that's censorship. If you're a private company, that's not censorship. This is trickier than it seems, because actually, for example, in the case of Twitter, FBI agents actually went into the headquarters of Twitter to tell Jack Dorsey and others how they should manage some kind of Twitter filtering or bans or account restriction. So when a company, which is a for-profit private company, does something because they have the FBI agents inside the offices, is that public or private? I think it blurs the lines a little bit, right? The Twitter files showed us that the lines can be a little bit blurred. So maybe I am Elon Musk. I would like free speech, but then I also want to sell stuff to some countries, and people in those countries, they will go to jail if they say something. So maybe I have to review my stance, but not because I choose it, because there was a threat of violence from the state in some local place. So this is complex. Let's move to a more, so for example, I'm a libertarian. I don't think that public versus private really makes any sense. I think that governments are just private circles that use this mythology to cover the fact that they are just taking resources from other people. It's like, I mean, you are in Sicily. Thank you. Yeah, okay, you can do it. Thank you. So you are in Sicily. One guy comes and says, I want your money. He's a private robber. But then if a guy comes and say, I want your money, but I represent the local society with Cosa Nostra, I represent the Padrino, and this money is for your own protection, now it's not private anymore. Now it's public. It's basically a state. The Cosa Nostra, Repubblica Italiana, these are states. One is bigger, one is smaller. But Cosa Nostra has tax rate at 10%. Repubblica Italiana has 70%. So, I mean, they're not all equal, but still they are mafias. So a better distinction is violent versus peaceful. One could say that if I come to you and I aggress you physically, if you say something, that's censorship. And if I don't do that, but I just use my own property to select if I want to reproduce your information or not, so if I only rule on my newspaper or on my walls of my house for your graffiti, you are Banksy, you want to do art on my wall, man, that's my wall. I decide if you do art there or not. If you are Banksy, buy a fucking house and do your art, but not on mine, right? So this is violence versus peaceful. But the problem is that how do you define violence? In order to define what is violence and what is not violence, you have to have a theory of property. And the theory of property is quite complex. You have basically to know what is yours and what is not yours. You have to have that well defined. So you go back to a distinction between something that is just and something which is not just. So you go back to the start, which the fact that these guys here, after a lot of nuances and discussion, go back to the same starting point of bad versus good, also plays into another speech that I gave, which is basically this. Which is this, and you can see that on YouTube as well. So the problem of Bitcoin with midwits. So another shameless plug. But anyway, in order to let's do an experiment. I still have a few minutes. Let's do an experiment. Let's try some example, and let's see if we can be internally consistent with the definition, externally consistent with other things that we know about the world, maximally consistent over time and over people. So, for example, you turn on a laptop, you git clone Bitcoin Core, so you write Bitcoin Core git clone, and you run it, you compile it in C++, and you run it. So if you open the laptop and it's not your laptop and you enter the password in Linux and the password is wrong, your information will be deleted and you will not be able to access the information and to run Bitcoin. Is that censorship? Is that censorship? No, right? If you open the terminal and you write git clone, but then you don't write it right, you make a typo in git clone, your command will be ignored by the operating system. Is that censorship? No, it's a rule. Just create your own version of Git that does differently. If you compile Bitcoin Core, but the things you say are not welcome in the compiler, because when you use the compiler doesn't like your syntax because it's not C++. Is that censorship? No? Okay. You run Bitcoin Core with the wrong command. Bitcoin Core doesn't start. Is that censorship? No. Let's try to get a little bit more complex. So, okay. So your Bitcoin Core node starts and it connects with other peers. Some peers, you don't even know that. You don't even look at that, but it does that automatically. Your node will receive information from some peers that are considered as spam because there are too many connection attempts, so basically they are considered potential DDoS attack. So your node, in the peer-to-peer part, they will blacklist, oh, sorry, that's racist. They will blocklist, how I will say now, they will blocklist the IPs of other Bitcoin nodes when they misbehave in terms of timing of connection. Is that censorship? No? Okay, we're still good? So now, your Bitcoin Core will run, and when it runs, it will reject all the blocks violating the difficulty adjustment. So if somebody is trying to make a block that doesn't satisfy the difficulty adjustment, your node will just exclude it. Maybe this block pays a lot of fees, but it's not consistent with your selected difficulty adjustment. So it's not censorship, right? Let's do the same with blocks violating the issuance schedule. This block is cool, it follows the difficulty adjustment, but it gives you 23 million Bitcoin of fees or of issuance in the Coinbase. You reject that. Your node will reject that because that's the rule. So this is not a divine rule. It's not like that, like Satoshi choose the supply schedule for an ethical necessity. He could have chosen 21 million, 23, 25, 42 would be even cooler, 69. It was on him arbitrary choice, and you are not just agreeing with that arbitrary choice because you want to stay in consensus with Bitcoin, and so you are excluding everybody else. This is not censorship. It's your node, your rules. You reject blocks that are violating the block size limit. This is still not censorship. Sorry, Roger. This is not censorship. This is just another rule, just like the difficulty adjustment. So now, you reject transactions that violate the script rules, so they are not using the correct signatures, not censorship. Now, this is trickier, because now you see a transaction that violated the dust limit in your mempool. So what does your Bitcoin Core node today, every one of your nodes right now, what does it do? They will eliminate the transaction from your mempool. If you are a mining pool node, this will eliminate the transaction from your block template. But this transaction is not violating the rules of the protocol. Indeed, if you find this transaction on the mempool, you will just delete it. But if you find it inside the block from somebody else, you will accept the block as valid. So this is not about validity of the blocks. This is about mempool policies. This makes it more censorship than the other? No. It's just another technical choice of your node. And all of your nodes are doing this. But somebody may say, okay, but nobody's paying for dust limit. What if your Bitcoin Core will see a transaction in the mempool that will violate the op return limit? So it will have 81 bytes of op return. Again, your Bitcoin Core node will reject it right now, all of your nodes, from your mempool. If you are a mining pool, it will reject it from your block template immediately. But if you find it in a block, then it will accept it as valid. And this transaction is not dust. It can pay a lot of fees. You can try to send today a transaction that is basically giving $1 million of fees, but has an op return with 82 bytes. This transaction will be excluded by your node and excluded by your block template automatically by Bitcoin Core. So if we move from Bitcoin Core and you go to Keynote's version 25, which is what the mining pool I was referring before is using right now, the limit is moved from 80 bytes to 42 bytes. Is there something magical about the number 80 and 42 that makes this censorship and not the other one? Well, let's think about like consistency over like good versus bad. It depends. Somebody may consider this better, and there is a debate to be had about that. I'm not necessarily agree with Luke on this. Maybe it's better 80, maybe it's better 42. I think it's better 42 actually. But anyway, it's a debate about that. We don't have an agreement. Consistency over time. Well, Bitcoin Core used to filter transaction above 32. Then Bitcoin Core changed the policy, while another implementation that forked before didn't change the policy. Is that censorship? I don't think so. So let's move to now F2Pool that install a patch that will exclude the transactions that are included in the OFAC blacklist, oh sorry, that's racist, block list, under threat of physical aggression. So these transactions are transactions that are forbidden globally. They are forbidden on bank accounts, on PayPal, everywhere the government can forbid them, they will try to forbid them. And if you are accused by the United States government to facilitate violation of OFAC lists, you are going to jail physically. So maybe F2Pool people really dislike Vladimir Putin alone, as they say. Or maybe there is a direct threat of aggression, physical aggression, if they include this transaction. So, going over all the criteria that we used, physical aggression, like peaceful versus violent, and even like even bad versus good, because in a way that the main point about this patch is how do you know that the OFAC list is correct? Can you verify it? Do they have like an open source system that you know that if a transaction is included in that list, that's Vladimir Putin? Do you, even assuming that it's fine for you to censor monetary transaction from Vladimir Putin, do you really know it's him, or you're just trusting a politician that is telling you something? And what happens if you don't trust the politician? It's just a matter of a difference of opinion, or you risk to go to jail. The latter. So I think that this is a very good point to start to distinguish from filtering for technical reasons that we may disagree about and actual censorship resistant. Bitcoin cannot be considered censorship resistant for the first set of rules, because those define Bitcoin. Bitcoin is all these rules. Bitcoin cannot work without all these rules. Yes, it can work without these, arguably, or maybe even without these, but these are just parts of how Bitcoin works. Bitcoin cannot work anymore with these rules. If these rules are implemented, Bitcoin becomes PayPal. It's just a very inefficient version of PayPal. So this is not even my final form. The final form is not a patch that will exclude OFAC blacklist transaction from the mempool, but it will be another patch, version 2, that will exclude OFAC blacklist blocks from the blockchain. So even some other mining pool, even if some other mining pool includes an OFAC blacklist transaction, I will not just exclude it from my mempool. I will also exclude it from my blockchain, creating basically a soft fork, enforcing some kind of evil soft fork. So I have to finish with one thing. I am friend personally with Tone, last one. I am friend with Max Kaiser. He was a speaker here as well, so he cannot be a scammer, right? Because Tone only selects the best. I'm personal friend with him. I respect what he's doing about the educating against shitcoins in El Salvador. Shitcoins are bad, and education is a good tool to prevent people from getting scammed. But this, even if I am a friend with a person, this is exactly censorship. Sorry, Max. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Giacomo. Wow, you got off the stage quick. Don't forget your other belt. Now you have 2. Came with none, now he's got 2. All right. Thank you so much. Giacomo, let's have one more round of applause. So, Giacomo, you've been to every Unconfiscatable. There is, I'm trying to think, what other speaker do we have here that's been to all of them? Ugly Old Goat. And I'm trying to, Jimmy Song as a speaker. And Jim, you've been to all of them as well. Right, so we have a few people. We're now on number 4. And so coming up at 11 o'clock, hopefully Derek Stevens, I don't know if he's in the room yet. Derek, if you are, raise your hand. Should be here at 11. He's the owner of the D Hotel and Circa. And we're going to talk about, Bitcoin in Las Vegas. Maybe one day you'll be able to gamble with your sats. And if anyone would know, it would be him if that's ever going to happen or not. I wanted to give a few shout outs to our sponsors. I don't know if we can get their slides up. Not yet. Okay. But please go to the back room. We have our sponsors there. You also see some of their logos. I can do it a little bit later. And when we get their pictures up on the screen, and we'll talk about them as well. And any questions? We maybe got Giacomo up here. I don't think Derek is here yet. If not, after Derek, we were going to do Nostr, I believe. That's the schedule, right? I don't know if those guys are here. Those guys are supposed to come on a little bit later. There you guys are. Are you guys ready to go now? Let's just do it. It's amazing to be ahead of the schedule. And then we'll do the panel after. Might as well keep it moving, right? Oh, by the way, guys, we can use all the social media promotion and help as we can so that this room gets completely overfull next year. We may have to move to the Circa. So please tag us and please post us. Unconfiscatable is the hashtag. Unconfiscatable is the Twitter handle, the Instagram handle, everything. So please take as many pictures as you like. We do not have Chatham House rules here. So anything you say can be used against you. If you don't want to be seen, you may want to walk around in the mask. This is slightly different than some of the other events. So please tag us. Oh, here we go. Let me just do a quick shout out to the sponsors. CleanSpark. It was great. They have offices right here in Las Vegas. CleanSpark, they're sponsoring the coffee right there. So that's great. Ocean Mining Pool. You see their logos right there. There's going to be an ocean mining panel at the end of at the end of day today. It's the last panel we have. I was just in South Carolina along with Giacomo and several others that are here. One of our sponsors was there as well. That's how we found them. And that's the Timo who won the poker tournament as well, which is awesome. I think this is incredibly innovating with Ocean, and I can't wait to hear them on the panel. Ballet, they've been sponsoring us for years, especially the poker tournament, to give out the sats on their Ballet wallets for the poker tournament. Again, thank you so much. Bobby Lee couldn't make it this year, but thank you so much for the support. Next slide. Sovereign. Sovereign, the energy drink right there. Thank you so much. We met over at Pacific Bitcoin. Thanks for supporting us as well. And these are some of the other supporters that send in merch. You'll see the Bitcoin trading cards out in the back. Blockstream, they got a table back there selling jades. I gave out a few jades yesterday because I was confused. I didn't realize they were here for sale. So those that did get a jade yesterday, you are absolutely lucky. But if you did buy a VIP or if you are a speaker, come see me and we should be able to hook you up with a jade. We try to support our VIPs as much as we can. Let's go back to that. It's hard to remember everyone. CoinKite, once again, Rodolfo couldn't be here this year. He sent us some merch. We're going to do a bunch of giveaways. FOMO21, where's Neil? Now he's gone. He's been promoting us for a while. awesome. I mean, I can name everyone. BitBlock Boom, Gary Leland is around here somewhere. He'll be moderating a debate later. I think everyone's like in the back. I mean, I saw everyone at some point this morning. And Lightning Coffee, thank you so much for providing the coffee. Anyway, I can do this all day. We're going to do another shout out later on. I want to, Jim, you want to say something?
Am I on? Yeah. Folks, it's really great that everybody was able to come to this conference. Tone's done a lot of work. He mentioned there are people in yellow T-shirts that say staff. If you need anything, that's what they're here for. And I would just ask everybody who's standing in the back of the room, watching the presentation next to somebody that starts a conversation, it starts to get a little loud. So if you don't mind, take it outside or take it into the merchant room so we can keep this room as quiet as possible and give the speakers the respect they deserve. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And as you know, those of you who have been here before, yes, the event is structured. There's an agenda, but we also do a lot of random stuff, kind of like my YouTube channel, which is why it's more important for you to just be here. And we're going to, since the owner of the resort, the hotel is not here yet, we're going to get the next, we're going to keep it rolling. You guys send me your presentation. I'm going to pull it up since I'm still connected to the screen. Just say a few words while we get that up on the screen.
Hello.
Hey, folks.
So yeah, we're here to talk about Nostr. How many people have heard of Nostr? All right. How many people have a Nostr account? And how many people do actively post on Nostr? All right, Tatum. Yeah, so we're going to talk about, what is Nostr, why we're working on this new technology, and what does it have to do with Bitcoin? Because it's always kind of funny coming to a Bitcoin conference, and we're not really Bitcoin tech, but we're Bitcoin adjacent, and we think that Nostr is going to be an amazing tool for kind of spreading Bitcoin adoption throughout the world, which is, I think a worthy goal. And yeah, Terry.
Hey, everyone. My name is Terry. I'm a software developer, and over the past year, I've been working on the side, contributing to the Nostr protocol, and so I'm excited to speak to you all about that.
All right, let's get into it. All right, so what is the problem with the current state of social media? So much of our online interactions are done through these large corporations like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the problem is we are the product. Those companies exist to make money, and they do that in various ways. Via advertising, via selling your data, and if you say the wrong thing, or if you have the wrong opinion, or if you piss off the right people, you get completely deplatformed and removed from the internet, removed from internet existence. And we feel like this is just a weird situation where we're free individuals. We want to speak what our mind, and we want to speak what we want to say. We shouldn't have to fear of being of self-censoring ourselves or be afraid of saying the wrong thing and just to be have our entire social existence, our online social existence, erased in a snap of the fingers. So this is a huge problem that we started to see a lot in the recently. And another thing is algorithms. So a lot of these platforms, they have very specific algorithms, mainly designed to make money. And a lot of these algorithms, the way that they work is, they try to get, they're really just trying to drive engagement. And if they have more engagement, they have more people interacting, then they can keep you on their platform, they can keep serving you ads. But unfortunately, a lot of these algorithms have learned that certain things are more engaging than others, such as fighting and conflict. So that's you'll find a lot of time on Twitter. Everyone's kind of angry and yelling at each other because that actually is telling the AI algorithm that's wow, this is really driving views and clicks. So I'm going to keep promoting this anger and hateful stuff. So you can see how this could go down a really bad path of dystopia, where everyone's just angry and yelling at each other online. And so I feel like just having these algorithms that are very centralized is having negative effects. Not to say algorithms in general are bad, but these centralized algorithms are having negative effects on society.
Cool. Just a show of hands, who in here has been censored online before, whether it be on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, or even interacted with someone's content that you want to interact with and they got taken down? Either one, either officially or unofficially. Okay, cool. So that is a real problem in the current space of social media and just like your online identity, right? You have so many different platforms. I've only listed a few here, but what happens if one of these companies decides that, oh, you posted something that I think is objectionable? They could just ban your account, take down your content. And sometimes they get it wrong, right? And so they have to reverse it, but like, you have to go through this turmoil of like, oh, is my thing banned? Is my thing not banned? But also moving from platform to platform, your identity is completely different. Like if you have followers on one platform, they don't come with you to other ones. So if you get censored and you have a big following and you make a living off of that following and they ban you, then okay, like suddenly your revenue goes away. That's a real problem here.
All right, so we've been working on this protocol, which is proposed to solve a lot of these problems. It's called Nostr. It was created by someone, a Bitcoiner named Fiat Jaff, who is, he worked on LN URL and drive chains and a bunch of other Bitcoin specs. And it was a really simple and clever solution, which is just starting to take off. So we're going to talk a little bit about what it is, how it works. So yeah, why don't you jump into it, Terry?
Cool. So Nostr, it stands for Notes and Other Stuff Transmitted by Relays, and that's pretty technical. But like Notes is like a post that you'll post on Twitter, for example, and then there's also some other stuff that comes with the protocol. I won't make it too technical, but effectively how it works, in traditional social media, you might use like a Twitter client or a Reddit or a YouTube client, and it connects to some centralized server owned by some company. For Nostr, it's the opposite. It's an open protocol. You can have clients, so Will could use some client, let's say Damus. I could be using like Habla News or Snort Social, some other Nostr client. And it connects to a multitude of different relays, right? In this example, I have relays from A to E. So what happens if the relay operator for A decides that my content is objectionable, I violated some like terms of service, they might choose to censor me and take down my content. But because I've also posted to relays B to E, my content is still online. So even though some individual party decides to censor me, I'm not completely censored. And so we say that Nostr is censorship resistant.
And now we have a very good understanding of censorship, thanks to Giacomo. So I feel like this kind of falls in line with a lot of the same reasoning that was used. So yeah, enter, and so I started working on an app called Damus. It's an iPhone application that was one of the first mobile Nostr clients. And so the way that it works is you just you create an account. You actually don't enter an email. You don't enter anything. You don't have to enter any personal identifiable information. You just generate a key and go. So this is a very powerful idea. And we don't have any ads. We don't have any tracking because we're trying to build like a better path. We're trying to show like what it looks like to build on these free and permissionless networks, and we're just trying to do it right and not start with all the horrible ads and stuff. So. So one of the biggest features that we released on the network was called Zaps. So Zaps are a way to send Bitcoin to people over Lightning, and so they show up on the post, and you can zap a post, and you can see that Bob sent Alice 1,000 sats, and we find that this really drove Lightning usage. It's really fun when you can start sending sats to your friends, and you have like a reason to do so, and what's really interesting is that we called it Zaps for a reason. There were some other terms like boosts and sats and things like that. We just decided that you don't even really need to mention Bitcoin. Bitcoin is kind of off-putting for like a lot of people. It turns out, I don't know why, but they hear from their friends that it's a scam and they don't really understand, and they see it as a skimmy crypto thing. So a lot of people still believe that, and they don't really understand the value proposition. So if they can join a network and not have to think that they're using Bitcoin, but then get to experience how fun it is to receive a Lightning payment without being a Bitcoiner, we're finding that it's orange pilling lots of people. I think so Edward Snowden joined the network, and he was like, "Oh, Bitcoin, isn't that slow technology? It takes 10 minutes to do a transaction." And everyone's like, "Put your LN URL in your profile." And he's like, "Okay, whatever this is." He downloaded the wallet of Satoshi and put it in his profile. Everyone started zapping him. He's like, "Wow, I didn't know Bitcoin was so fast. It's amazing." So if we can orange pill Edward Snowden, I think we can do it for a lot more people. And And yeah, so it's exciting. We like to say that the purple pill makes the orange pill go down smoother.
Cool. So I talked about the acronym of Nostr. There's the other stuff of Nostr. So you might be really familiar with microblogging, so Twitter clients, Reddit clients, but there's so many other use cases that hasn't really been explored yet. So we put 3 examples here on the screen. The first one is called Flockster. It's a sort of like a meetup type of app, but the cool part is it's all interoperable. So your identity that you use on a DOMIS client can also transport into these clients. Stemster is a sort of a music collaboration type of app, so you can collaborate with other people to mix different tracks to make an entire song. Or Habla News, which is like a long form content blogging type of client, a website. So yeah, it all works under the same identity, your same following. So if you have a set of followers, they will follow you here as well.
Yeah, and this interoperability aspect is really interesting. So for instance, I think you worked on a lot of the calendar spec that enables Flockster to even work. And what is a spec on Nostr? It's just a description of a JSON document. And this is like the data that lives on the relays. So when someone says, hey, I'm creating an event at this place, it's just a note like any other note. It's just like a tweet or a contact list. It's just another note on the relays. So in DOMIS, I can be like, hey, I have everyone's social graph. I just have to pull down this new note type, and now all of a sudden I can see where all my friends are going, all the events they're going to, and they can display that within DOMIS. So it's interoperable in a much more interesting sense than just transferring identities. You can actually pick pieces of different applications and mix them together. So what we're actually effectively building is a new type of web, a web of interoperable applications. Then they could be native applications, not just web applications. So it's a very interesting and promising protocol that we're just starting to explore these ideas. So yeah, what's our mission? We feel like this is probably the best bet at building a large-scale social network that extends free speech to 100 million users, and having Bitcoin adjacent to it is a really interesting opportunity to expose a lot of more people to Bitcoin as well. So does it work? Do people care? So within the first 2 days of launching it on the App Store, we got about 220,000 installs, mostly because of Jack Dorsey and he was pumping it, but still. It was really interesting because after 2 days, the CCP actually got wind of it and blocked DOMIS from the App Store in China, which was really interesting. So they were paying attention, like, oh, free speech is rising, like we gotta shut this down. So I like to say I'm banned in China now. So, so yeah, what's the team? Like we have a great. So DOMIS is an open source project. It's GPL. We have lots of open source contributors like Terry. Terry worked on a lot of the translation features within DOMIS and localization. So that's been amazing for adoption. So thank you, Terry. We have a great product team. Jack's been a really good, huge supporter, obviously, and he's a great person to have on board. He gives great advice, and so it's amazing to have him as a resource because he seems to know a lot about this stuff. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, visit
We have a few minutes for questions.
Oh yeah, questions. Anyone has questions?
Giacomo.
So let's connect back to the example I made inside the presentation, specifically about well, it doesn't change much about Nostr. So you have something that maybe you really think should not go around. Somebody is that there is some stuff, some information that mostly everybody agree it's hurtful, and then there is information that is not. How can you have a soft spot when the relay ecosystem is decentralized enough not to enforce politically correctness abuses, but it is centralized enough that it can easily coordinate to, for example, avoid, I don't know, minor porn or stuff like that?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of aspects to this, which is one important aspect is, so no images are stored on Nostr, it's just a text protocol. So our liability in that aspect is kind of reduced. So it really comes down to like text. So like, are there objectionable things that people say and people would want to censor? Like maybe. And could you coordinate amongst lots of different relays to censor that information? You could. It might be difficult. There might be a reaction to that. We're also changing the way, we're moving to a new model for fetching notes that's more decentralized. Like right now, we just all connect to the same 10 relays. That was kind of like a dumb model that Damus introduced. But we're moving to a much more decentralized where you can configure which relays you write to, which relays you read from, and then so clients could be much more intelligent about fetching from different relays so it'll be much more harder to censor. So I don't think it'll be a huge problem, but we haven't had a huge attack yet to really test it. So
we had one more question here somewhere.
Is there a plan to do an Android version? You guys always own iOS.
Yeah, so for Damus, we're planning next year to work on Damus Android. We're just trying to find funding to kind of support that work, but we're mainly powered by grants. So OpenSats has been amazing, Jack's been amazing funding. So we need to find a way to make this sustainable to keep working on this stuff. But yeah, definitely next year I'm going to focus on Damus Android.
All right, last one.
Yeah, just to add to what Giacomo was saying, connected to you guys, and I'm not a techie, so forgive me if this is a stupid question. But when my Wikipedia was created, it was created specifically to attack me, to be used as a weapon by the media. That's the other thing that is being used for. Is this something that we can see evolve at a Nostr, that we see some sort of Wikipedia type platform built on top of it, or no?
I don't know if you want to answer a question, but I can answer it too. So what's interesting about Wikipedia is that it's a very centralized system, right? So you have one database, you have a bunch of people who have their opinions on what's allowed and what's not allowed. Whereas again, Nostr, anyone can run a relay, anyone can post notes that have their own opinion. There's no centralized article that you can really update. So people are working on a decentralized Wikipedia on Nostr. I think Fiat Jaffa is working on that. So yeah, so imagine if you go into a website, now there's not just like a single page that has one opinion. It could have variations based off of which relays are on and who have edited it, but there's no way to enforce a centralized page on a decentralized network like Nostr. So
I think the main thing is to enable user choice, right? Opt out of having a centralized system choose things for you, but rather you as a user, you choose your own destiny, choose what kind of content you want to see, and no one's going to be able to censor you in that way. Yeah, and since your notes are actually signed cryptographically, you own the data. So the relays are just dumb, redundant storages of your notes, but you actually own your data on this protocol, which is we didn't really mention, but it's a really important aspect, and you can choose where you want to put your notes, where you want to read your notes. So yeah, it gives powers back to the user. So yeah.
All right, thank you so much, guys. You guys are both going to be on the panel. We're going to do a fireside chat with Derek Stevens, the owner of the D and Circa. And after that, we're going to do a panel on freedom technology. They're both going to be on the panel, and then we're going to have a couple of others. We have a developer of Liquid, and moderated by Jimmy Song. And I believe Dusty is on that panel as well, I think. Yep, there he is. And we're going to talk about how we can use technology for more freedom for everyone. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
I'll grab that. Put it on my desk. Next to my computer. All right, Derek, whenever you're ready, come on up. And he'll need a mic. All right, let's welcome Derek Stevens, everyone.
Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing today?
We're going to chat for a few minutes, and then we're going to actually open it up to Q&A. If anyone was ever curious what it's like to, even build a hotel, casino hotel here in Vegas, and running them, this is the man to ask. So Derek, why don't you introduce yourself, a little bit about your history, how you got into here, and don't forget to mention when and how the Bitcoin ATM came about here at the D.
Yeah, I'm originally from the Detroit, Michigan area, and I progressively.
Why we're in the Detroit ballroom, huh?
Well, yeah. As you can see with the D, we have all of our ballrooms and meeting space named after cities in Michigan. I started moving out here progressively in 2006. Now I'd been coming to Vegas for, I would say about 15 years before that for work or for pleasure. And 2006, I bought the Golden Gate, so just down the street. And in this business, when you buy something, you don't actually get to do anything with it until you get licensed. So my licensing took almost 18 months, so I got licensed in March of '08. And then at that point in time, I started moving out here progressively. Little by little, I still had kids in grade school and high school at that time, so I was back in Michigan quite a bit. But over the course of the next few years, I ended up spending a little bit more time out here. And I've been now full-time in Vegas for, I would say 10, 12 years or so. After purchasing the Golden Gate, I had been in negotiation to try to buy another casino for a little while. And I really liked downtown Las Vegas. So I had an opportunity to reach agreement to buy this property, which at that time was called Fitzgerald's. And we eventually got to the point where we were able to get the deal done at the beginning of 2011. And then in the casino business, it's not as if you get a license. It's not as if like a driver's license where once you get one, you're good everywhere you go. Every license is affixed to a property. So I had to get relicensed for this property. And that once you have done it once, it doesn't take as long the second and third time. So I was licensed in October of 2011 for this property. We spent some time renovating, and in March of 2012, we had a night where we gave out T-shirts to everybody that said, "I got drunk at Fitzgerald's, but I woke up at the D." Because we transferred our whole brand over overnight one night, and then that was the beginning of the D Las Vegas. So we kind of brought a little bit of a different vibe with a little louder music and a lot more TVs and things like that to this property. And then we had a lot of fun kind of operating and kind of growing the D here for the last 10, 12 years. It was a couple years into the D is when the opportunity came up to bring a Bitcoin ATM in, and I would say 10 years ago, the Gaming Control Board was obviously very, very reluctant. This was prior to the government declaring that people weren't sure, is this a currency or what was going to happen. So there was a lot of reluctance, and I think maybe the fact that we were a smaller, privately held company, and we went to the Gaming Control Board and we said, hey, we would like to bring this Bitcoin ATM in. They listened to us and they were intrigued and they had a lot of questions. I think some of the big companies, like Caesars at the time or MGM, were a bit more reluctant to move forward with this, but we were a smaller company, and I had always asked, like, well, why not? So the Gaming Control Board gave us the ability to bring a Bitcoin ATM in. They allowed us to accept Bitcoin in various locations, such as our restaurants, our gift shop, our hotel, for meeting space, and they wanted to monitor transactions just to see how things were going, and they had a very positive perspective on it, and really ever since then I've never really had many questions about it. I would say there's a couple of funny times when I had the Gaming Control Board here, and they looked at the Bitcoin ATM, and they had their tech people, they had their administrators, they had the control board members, and they had a lot of interest in opening up the machine because it was almost as if
they're looking for the Bitcoins.
I don't know. It was almost as if you remember that one day when Geraldo Rivera had to open up that safe and wanted to see what was inside. Everybody wanted to see what was inside this thing, so that was kind of fun. But effectively bringing Bitcoin in was great for us. We got some publicity. I got to meet you. I got to meet a lot of the people you brought out, and and Bitcoin to Vegas has been nice for our properties.
Yeah, no, it's great. And there was a conference in this room back in 2015. Everyone was about to start booing. So there was an event here in 2015. It was back then, it was early 2015. It was more of a Bitcoin-ish event. Even Nick Szabo was one of the speakers. But at that event, over a stream, was the very first public appearance of Craig Wright pretending to be Satoshi. That happened right here in this room as well. So this room has a long history. And we had to, come back here and make sure that that won't happen again. So this becomes a Bitcoin-only conference. A quick word on the Circa. This was like the first construction downtown. That's the new hotel. And just a few words on that, and then we might, then I'll have a few questions, and then we'll open it up.
Yeah, so, Circa's up now, but you think about how much time it takes to build something.
You were building it during the pandemic, too.
Right. Well, my first investment into what's that city block that Circa sits on was in August of 2015. We were designing during 2016 and 2017, and we effectively began setting up the property for a build in 2018, and then we built in 2019 and 2020. We were planning on opening around New Year's of 2020, but then in March of 2020, obviously pandemic hit. Initially, obviously everyone at that time is pretty scared about what's going on, what's going to happen with the business. I got asked by a number of people, well, are you going to put the project on hold? And that we were I guess we were maybe 7 months pregnant with this project. It's you don't put the project on hold. Other projects got canceled, but we were down the path pretty well. So what we kind of took a different approach. The governor at that time in the state of Nevada, he came from the trade unions, and he made a declaration which was very different than in other states. He declared that construction was a protected industry in the state of Nevada. So unlike in the state of New York, where all construction projects had to cease, in Nevada, construction projects were one of the only things that was allowed to continue on. So then what happened was our builders came up with a great idea, saying, we're building this, effectively 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, but we're doing that because of the sound problems. Now, there's nobody on the streets. There's no hotel rooms that we're going to disrupt. So we went to 24-hour construction, and we were able to open in October of 2020. So we opened about 10 weeks earlier. Over the long term, you'd say maybe 10 weeks doesn't make that much of a difference. But I've never been one that has had to borrow this type of money. And when you're thinking about the interest rate on what you're paying, it's pretty crazy to think that our interest that we were paying was in excess of $1 million a week. It was pretty meaningful that we were able to open up a little bit early. What was also pretty cool in Vegas, when we opened, there were still a lot of casinos that had not reopened. So we were able to employ an additional, effectively 3,000 people when people were out of work. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I didn't know about that. That's really cool. I was there for the grand opening. It was really, really cool when you guys were showing the Circa around. And we're looking, hopefully one day we'll move this event over to the Circa. It is by far the nicest. It's brand new, so it has to be the nicest hotel in this area on Fremont. So any future plans for Bitcoin? I mean, you do accept it for room payments and other payments, but have you had any talks, maybe a slot machine denominated in Bitcoin or Satoshi? We do our poker tournament denominated in Bitcoin, and we just use a private venue. You want to challenge the commission one more time? Hey, guys, ATM was okay. Any chance of a slot machine? And then maybe, take it from there.
I would tell you that one of the reasons why I like to come here to this conference, first is really to tell everybody thank you for coming to our property and spending your time here. But for me, I think like everyone else, I'm here to learn. If there are ideas that you have or the audience has this week, I'll give up my business card to anyone that wants one. But throw the ideas my way. I could tell you that maybe when I first met you, I was still pretty new in the industry, but now I've been around a little bit longer. I would say our relationship with the Gaming Control Board is great, and they actually push me to provide them with more ideas. So if a Bitcoin poker tournament is on the list, we just have to go through some details and make a presentation. I'm certainly not saying that I can get something approved because they're going to have a lot of questions, but I can certainly get a forum and see what we could do. I want to support cryptocurrency. I want to support Bitcoin. I want to support all of you. So for me, I'm here really to tell everybody I want to learn from you. So if you've got ideas and thoughts, please convey them. Please write me an email because I'd like to do whatever I can to support this group.
No, that'd be awesome. Thank you. And yeah, if anyone like works in that kind of tech and can put together a plan, again, same thing. A Bitcoin-denominated poker tournament is great. We do that already. If there is ever a Bitcoin-denominated slot machine with unconfiscatable branding on it would be great. So any designers want to put that together, that'd be awesome because we do have amazing branding. All right, on this note,
let me just jump in here on something like this. As you say, one of the issues that gaming always brings up is a variable price prize. If someone hits a jackpot, they have to get a W2G, and it's a defined dollar amount. Somebody hits for 10,000. That's kind of how that works. But there are variable valued jackpots that are out there, particularly when you see some of these jackpots that are in the form of a silver bar or a gold bar or something like that. The reason I bring that up is that that's opened the door to variable priced payouts, which I think is the path that we would want to take.
Oh, yeah.
With a jackpot that could be a Bitcoin or something along those lines.
What? That's a great idea because you don't have to like put Bitcoins or Satoshis in to gamble. Like you're getting paid out in fiat, but the grand prize, if you hit that magic sevens or whatever the magic final jackpot is, that number is denominated in Satoshis, which is the lowest unit of Bitcoin, which could also tick up over time. So that price is like a gold bar. Yeah, that would be a good start.
So I think from a gaming control board's perspective, that would probably be the methodology that we would want to present first, and I think they'd be most open to it, just to let everybody know.
Awesome. Let's open up to questions. Do we have anyone with a microphone? Zezo? We got Muzz. Surfer's right there.
Hey, Derek. It's really cool, everything that you've done with Bitcoin and trailblazing it for casino support over the years. We've paid up here and had a good time, and the ATMs. But I was just wanting to know, for a safety perspective, when you think about the cage, okay, and you're setting a precedent because in the casino and the gaming world, Bitcoin is so useful. It's so powerful. You think of a young single girl, she just won $4,000 or $5,000. She's at the cage. She's got to walk out with that purse. And it just makes so much sense in my head with a company like Azteca, or you could build something yourself, to just give that option right there at the cage, right? Do you want to walk out with this $11,000? Do you want to send it to your hardware wallet at home? Are you familiar with Bitcoin? By the way, you put a 5% premium on that, whatever you do. It's revenue generating, and it really sets the bar for gaming moving forward. And it just, I know they got to deal with the board and maybe that they'd hate that idea, but to me that seems like such a logical, perfect move is to put that at the cage and allow people to leave with it.
I actually like that idea a lot. That would be an idea I would say, let's put this into this email of these various ideas. Right now, if we have someone that wins a big amount, whether it's on table games or on a slot jackpot or on a big sports bet, right now people have a few different options. They have the ability to go to the cage and get cash. They have the ability to go to the cage, leave it on deposit. They've got the ability to go to the cage and take it out in chips. They've got the ability to go to the cage and get a check. And they've got the ability to go to the cage, leave it there, and get a wire to their bank account. I think the additional option would be very valuable, particularly as more time goes by. So I like that. I like that. I like that thought a lot, and I'll also tell you why I like the thought a lot is because I would love if we would be able to accept incoming Bitcoin to our cage, just like we accept incoming wires. When someone's coming into town, oftentimes for some of the bigger players, you know, you may have someone coming in that want 6 suites over a premium weekend, and let's say the suites are going off for more than $1,000 a night, and they want them for 5 nights and 6 suites, and they want all types of catered dinners, and then they want gambling money. It's a pretty regular occurrence. Like on a day like today, we will get many 100,000 to, you know, sometimes $500,000 or $1 million of wires that come in. I've always wanted to accept Bitcoin in the cage, and we haven't been able to do that. I think the idea you just presented, maybe we're able to marry that together in a way that we say that this is some good business for Las Vegas, and I'd like to marry these couple thoughts together and make that presentation.
Awesome, thank you. Any more questions? Yep, right there in the back.
You actually work for one of your gaming suppliers, and I'll tell you that the compliance of the company is afraid of Bitcoin. If you were to reach out and say, we want a gaming device, a progressive table, that the price is dictated in Bitcoin, they would probably make that for you. But right now, compliance is just afraid to even try.
Oh, I completely agree with you. If we were to do something, we would not be at a stage where we would be reaching out to Aristocrat or IGT or anything else like that. This would have to be something that we would work on. You got to start at the top. We'd have to work through the Nevada Gaming Control Board. We'd have to work through with them, and we'd have to walk hand in hand as we go to a vendor to help create something. Because I think most gaming suppliers would be reluctant to spend the time, the money, and the effort to try to develop something when they think something is less than likely to come to fruition. But if we worked something out with the Gaming Control Board and they endorsed it, and we said, okay, we commit that we're going to buy 6 of these machines, I think any one of the gaming operators would jump on working with us on something like that. The key thing is we have to present something that the Gaming Control Board thinks is useful, and go from there. But I'm ready to go on that.
Now, what about Lightning for my Players Club points? Being able to do it that way.
Again, I think as time goes by, all of these ideas have a higher probability of getting accepted. Frankly, I think things have become more regular, and I think a lot of these ideas all make a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, just got to make sure you're first, right? You don't want another hotel beating you to this.
No, I agree. I mean, that's a little bit of our advantage. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I think one of our advantages was the fact that we were smaller. So we kind of felt that when we talked about it, why would we not bring a Bitcoin ATM in? And I couldn't get anyone to give me a good answer. So I said, okay, let's go ahead and do it. I think in some of the bigger publicly traded companies, there's probably some other SEC related issues and other concerns that they may have that we don't necessarily have. So we like to be the leader in this, and your ideas help us.
All right, awesome. Any other questions? If not, we got one more, and then we'll let Derek. He'll have a few more minutes to just hang out if you want to ask him something privately. All right, we'll have two quick ones, and then you'll have a few minutes to just walk around the floor.
It's a much less exciting question, but I'm really curious if there's a story behind the mechanical horses. They're just so cool.
Yeah, here's the story. When I first came to Vegas, and I'm not going to say the year, but you can rest assured I wasn't quite 21 at the time. I stayed at a hotel, the very first hotel I ever stayed at in Vegas, and I think the hotel room rate was like $16. It was a big-time hotel, too. It was called the Dunes Hotel, and they had a Sigma Derby over there, and that's where I had my very first shrimp cocktail, and I had that with their very first, the Dunes Las Vegas French dip sandwich, and I got a bunch of quarters, and I played Sigma Derby, and that was the first gambling I ever did. So I've always had that as a little bit of fondness in my heart. And then what happened was, over the decades, all the casinos got rid of this game, and I thought, oh man, that game was fun as hell. Why can't we figure out how to get one back? So we went out and we purchased one. It had been decommissioned, so we had to rebuild it, and then we had to go to the gaming control board to get it reauthorized as a gaming device. And then when we did that, I believe MGM and the D were the last two casinos that had Sigma Derby. I know MGM's gotten rid of theirs, so I think we're the last one here. So, like I tell everybody, it's a fun game. It's a slot machine, but it's a community game. It's a great game to play with 10 of your friends and drink and have a little bit of fun. I've also told people that there's a long history with Sigma Derby, that a lot of people used to come into Vegas, and the very first bet they would make would be on a Sigma Derby, and that set them up for good luck for the rest of their trip.
Nice. All right, one last question. Right there.
Hey, Derek, thanks for being here today. We see a lot of companies today that are pro-Bitcoin, that are actually carrying Bitcoin on their balance sheet. A lot of companies today are actually carrying Bitcoin on their balance sheet to reduce operating income and their overall tax liability. And I'm wondering if you see that as a corporate financial strategy for your businesses, and just as a business leader, what kind of goes into that strategic decision making for you?
So, great question. I will tell you that one of the requirements that we had in bringing in a Bitcoin ATM into the D, and one of the requirements we had with regard to accepting Bitcoin at our steakhouse, our hotel, and things like that, was the Gaming Control Board made it a requirement that we monetize all the Bitcoin we've collected into U.S. dollars on a nightly basis. So I got to think now. Time goes by. It might have been. It was the company that used to advertise in the foot. Like, is it CoinCloud or I'm not.
Coinbase.
Coinbase. I forget who we had the initial contract with, but we had a contract with them, and then all of the Bitcoin that we collected, we had a window of time where the control board allowed us to have some collection variance, but it had to be less than a 24-hour period. So if someone checked out at 2 p.m. and it was, whatever the price was at that moment when they checked out, I think at 1 in the morning, we had to monetize into U.S. dollars. And that was the requirement because we were the first ones in place. That's still the case for us. So for our companies to maintain our gaming license, we do not have the ability to hold Bitcoin on our balance sheet at this point. So that's kind of how it evolved for us, and that's kind of where we're at.
Whoa. So I got one quick question. Has any of your employees requested to be paid in Bitcoin?
You know, we've not had that, but I will tell you, we have a lot of employees that love the Bitcoin ATM, particularly our tipped employees that developed an investment strategy that they would take, you know, one night's worth of tips. And I would see this line, you know, at about, let's say, you know, you get off at 2 in the morning, between like 2:30 in the morning and 3 o'clock, a line of our bartenders and our waitresses and things like that at the Bitcoin ATM that were depositing pretty regularly. Usually they would take one night a week or something like that, and have done very, very well on utilizing that strategy over the years. And obviously in the course of the last 10 weeks, people are even more exuberant about that. Well, I always thought bringing in the Bitcoin ATM, one of my things that I was always most worried about was how frequently would we have to refill the Bitcoin ATM. I definitely misjudged bringing the Bitcoin ATM in as much as I don't know that we ever had to refill the Bitcoin ATM with cash, because deposits always greatly exceeded withdrawals, and I really didn't believe that to have been the case early on, but that was the case for many years.
Wow, that's a great way to end it, guys. Round of applause for Derek. If he has some time, he'll hang around and ask him questions, and we're gonna have one more panel for you guys before lunch. I'm just gonna make a couple of announcements. Derek, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Oh, let me get one of your business cards. Oh, you gave me. Oh, that's the one. I got hers. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna get a couple of more chairs up on stage. There's gonna be 4 panelists plus a moderator, so we'll need 5 chairs. Yeah, so that was great. You guys got to hear it firsthand what the potential future of Bitcoin here in Vegas is. Man, I was thinking of something, and then I already. Lunch. Hey guys, so there's plenty of options outside. We're giving you a full hour and a half for lunch. So my advice is the moment the panel ends, I know everyone wants to hang out and network, but try to just like go outside with the people you're talking to and find a place to eat so you can come back in an hour and a half back to this room. For VIPs and speakers, we will have some food over in the VIP lounge. That's where VIPs and speakers can hang out. We're not making money yet with this conference, so we're not able to feed everyone. But one day, maybe we will get there. But again, thank you so much for the support. You're able to keep this event alive by purchasing a ticket and supporting us. We'll have a few more announcements maybe right before lunch or right after lunch. Come on back after a 1 hour and a half after lunch begins for some awesome giveaways as well. And stop by and check out Jonas over at the Tone Vase Tequila booth. It's ask him about that company. It's a brand new innovative company. Anyway, you gotta talk to him about it, and he'll tell you. He'll give you a taste of that tequila. It's absolutely incredible. All right. Any further ado, let's get Jimmy Song up here. Jimmy, why don't you just say a few words about, since you're going to be on 2 panels here, so you don't have a solo. So take a few minutes. The floor is yours to say anything, and then we'll bring up the speakers and talk about technological privacy.
All right. Good to see you all here. Pretty crazy that this conference has grown to the size that it has. It's crazy that we're in the midst of a bull market again, right? Like, it's always nice to see that happening. I didn't have anything prepared, and Tone just put me up here. So I'm just gonna, say a few things about how I think.
Yeah, what's the
ordinals
next book?
Yeah, well, I was gonna say like ordinals are stupid, but yeah, I think Tone has the right sort of attitude about this conference, because what we've seen in this space is that there are a lot of conferences that try to go really big, right? Scale up very quickly. And that's something that is very fiat, because you can scale up quickly because you get access to that and you can bring consumption forward and so on, and you can go really big. Here's the problem. You're very vulnerable, right? Like, because you need to raise all this money, take on a lot of debt, and we've seen several large conferences starting to like falter a little bit. We saw Consensus, for example, be this giant conference, but then they took on so much shitcoiner money that they collapse, right? It's sort of like this thing that happens because you have no more credibility. So I want to applaud Tone here for creating a conference that's not compromising. And that's a very important thing, because this is how you grow in the Bitcoin community. You do organic growth. You don't do debt-fueled fiat growth. And that's something that I think we should all strive to make work, right? Because ultimately, conferences like this are what are going to last, and not the giant conferences that invite shitcoiners and take shitcoiner money. So anyway, that's my little mini speech, and now I guess we can do the Freedom Tech panel.
Let's do the panel, yeah. And there are still big Bitcoin conferences that continue to take, well, no more Celsius money coming in, but Crypto.com. Oh, the Scammy Awards. Some of these things will be nominated, of course, at the after party. All right, let's get the panelists up.
All right. Can we get, yeah, there they are.
Yeah, they're
they
coming.
are walking up for us, and unfortunately, we only have 3 mics for the 4 panelists, so you guys are going to have to do the mic shuffle.
No, I have another one.
Yeah, oh, okay. Yeah, you. There you go. All right. So we have Dusty, William, Paolo, and Terry. So give these guys a round of applause, guys. All right. Let's just do very quick introductions. We have Dustin, who works on Lightning.
Yep, Lightning, splicing.
Yeah, a lot of splicing stuff.
Splicing all the things.
And splicing is amazing. If you haven't tried like Phoenix Wallet and done the splicing stuff, it's pretty amazing. And we have William, Damus, and Nostr. Absolute killer, right, feature in the last year or so, right?
Yep. Hello. Thank you.
Yeah. And what's your role with Damus?
Yeah, I guess I'm the lead developer, and I run the team, and I kind of work on Nostr as well at the protocol level. So.
Okay. And Paolo, you're from Blockstream. You do a lot of different things, but you've been working on Liquid more recently.
Okay, yeah. I'm the engineering manager of the Liquid team. I used to be a software developer for a few years, and then I became the engineering manager. And basically, my role is to oversee all the status on the growth of the Liquid network from the technical side.
Okay, and Terry, you work for Cash App, but you also work on Damos. So what's your role exactly within that ecosystem?
Yeah, I'm a software engineer at Cash App. I actually don't work on Bitcoin at Cash App, even though it's quite well known for doing some of that. But I am here to talk about Nostr. So.
Okay, great. So our panel is about freedom tech. So the first, I think, obvious question that everyone's going to have when we talk about something like freedom tech is, what does freedom tech mean to you, right? Like, there's a lot of different aspects to it, and given your various different specialties and what you've been working on, what does it mean to you, and what are some of the important values that you're trying to preserve?
Well, when I think about freedom tech, I think about the future of Bitcoin. And if we don't have, we had no Lightning or scaling technology of any kind, what's going to happen is everyone's going to have their Bitcoin on some exchange because the block space just can't handle it. So I view it as like we're in this battle of making Bitcoin work actually for everybody and not getting captured by the banks.
So for you, maybe there's like decentralization as a major one.
Yeah, or Lightning itself. Yeah, which
Okay.
is why I work on Lightning. I view it as the most important thing I could be working on for the long-term future of Bitcoin.
Okay, William?
Yeah, I mean, I think Bitcoin has been, synonymous with freedom technology, but we're starting to see other technologies that are, growing adjacent to it, like Nostr. And I see it as just they're just a set of technologies that give individuals more, sovereignty over their digital identity and in cyberspace in some sense, and in meat space. So that's how I think it's like a larger thing that's growing, but Bitcoin is perhaps the core of it.
Okay, so some self-sovereignty being a major value for
Yeah.
you. Okay, Paulo?
Yeah, for me it's close to the Lightning method of bringing Bitcoin closer to everybody, and from the liquid perspective, having the current fee status, it's complicating many people's lives. Actually, having to use Bitcoin and actually being able to use Bitcoin. So basically, liquid removing some of the movement of Bitcoin, but still keeping the same principles of Bitcoin, or at least most of the. Obviously, there are trade-offs when you're using liquid, but I think they are much better than using an exchange. So, from our perspective, is making Bitcoin more accessible to people who could not afford the high fees in an environment like this.
Availability, accessibility, some great values there. Terry, what are your thoughts on Freedom Tech, and what are some values that you try to live up to with what you're working on?
Yeah, I think the utmost value that I hold to myself, and I think we should try to perpetuate, is like not being in a position where people can silence other people. Everyone has opinions. I'm personally a little bit more left-leaning on the political spectrum, but I want to be able to hear everybody's voices, everybody's opinions. Everyone has a valid thing to say. Whether or not you agree with it is a different question. And so we should be building technology to enable that.
So maybe freedom of speech, First Amendment rights, stuff like that.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So there's obviously like a vast pool of different values that we're all sort of espousing with respect to freedom technology. But I think one persistent sort of tension that we've seen within Freedom Tech is this tension between privacy and usability, right? Because you have a lot of things that are centralized, that are very easy to use, they're very accessible, that are very easy to get on and very cheap, works really fast and so on. But they take all your information, right? You need to enter your phone number to get like a Twitter account now and so on. Whereas the alternative is much more technical. It's maybe slower. The latency is worse. So, like from your perspective, how do you balance those things in your various projects? And how do you think about it? Like, what's sort of like criteria that you use to figure out, okay, we're going to do A and not B?
Well, I view for Lightning that we're in this battle where it's like this silent battle where there's no front. That we're mostly fighting apathy of people that are like, hey, I'm going to use a custodial Lightning wallet because it's easy and it works. And they're right. So I view, like, as a Lightning protocol developer, like, my challenge is, how do we get self-custody as close as easy to use as a custodied wallet? And I think it's a hard battle. It's really hard. And you're always going to have, like, higher fees and more clunkiness and more slowness, but we should at least be minimizing that, right? If we can get it to, like, 99% as good as custodial, and then leave it to, like, the evangelism and people, losing their money to eventually move over that 1%. But I think right now, like, if you want to move from a custodied Lightning wallet to your own self-custody one, it's a huge jump. And Phoenix, you mentioned Phoenix earlier, they've made it a lot easier, but people on Twitter, it was a Twitter blow-up, I think, like 2 weeks ago. I think Brad Mills was talking about how Phoenix fees were too high because the mempool fees were too high. So I think that problems just keep happening, and I think that it's one of those things I think is actually direly important, and people today probably don't think of it as that important. A lot of people are used to, like, low fee markets in the history of Bitcoin. But if Bitcoin adoption keeps going the way it's going, which I firmly believe it will, this is going to be a serious problem. And we got to solve these things in advance of needing them, not after.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, at Damas, our strategy is just obviously usability is king. Like, just make it as easy as possible to get as many people on it as possible. You know, so we've made some trade-offs, and a lot of people don't like our decisions we made. So, for instance, we onboard a lot of people on the wallet of Satoshi and LB just because it's like easier, and like a lot of people, you know, don't store too much in those wallets. And but we just found, you know, it's just the easiest way to get people exposed to it. But what I want to see now is like we need just better solutions to like transition these people over onto more non-custodial solutions like Mutiny Wallet and Zeus, and you know, and so I think we just need to keep working on making those technologies easier. But I think usability is just a great entry point for a lot of this stuff.
How are you guys handling Wallet of Satoshi getting banned in the U.S.? That's got to be a blow.
Yeah, I mean, so LB is our other custodial thing that we push people to. But I mean, ideally, we just have a non-custodial wallet somehow within our apps, and then we just use those. But I just don't think the technology is quite there. Like, I was looking at maybe using Greenlight and things like that as a way to do.
Great idea.
Yeah, because like I like Core Lightning nodes. I used to work on Core Lightning, and I love that model. And not a lot of people are doing
Let's
that.
go.
So I would maybe I'll do that.
From the liquids perspective, it's basically trying to bring and to keep the core values of Bitcoin, and basically trying to maintain the idea of self-custody. If you run a Bitcoin node, you can perfectly well run a liquid node, right? And the idea of the confidential transactions on our side are more important to the privacy side than to the usability side. They don't change anything with regard to usability, but they're a big component with regard to privacy. And especially if the usage growth, it's going to be a lot more private to use it with confidential transactions because there's no way to know what's going on underneath. So for the privacy side, the confidential transactions for me are a very big deal. With regard to the usage level, it's not more complicated to use Liquid than to use Bitcoin. It's basically the same. And for us, it's important to knowing the restrictions or the differences that you have when you're using a layer 2, because obviously you have to make concessions to use a layer 2, because if you're not gonna make concessions, you stay on layer 1. That's it. Right? So, but for us, the concessions is you need to put part of your trust in the federation, but the idea for the federation is to be so decentralized and diverse that no one bad actor can rug pull you. So for us, it's trying to keep up with the values of Bitcoin as much as we can, while simplifying some things to make more accessible to more people.
I can comment on that in the perspective of Nostr. And the trade-offs are well, not trade-offs, but like the things to consider are usability, but also privacy. And currently, Nostr is very public, right? And it's sort of different set of assumptions that you would make compared to, say, like a Twitter, right? There are certain ways where like you can send private messages and things like that, even though it's kind of like pseudo-private because people can take screenshots of your messages, so it's like a false sense of privacy. But I think ultimately we really need to focus on usability. I think where we might have won is if we get Nostr to a place where people don't know that they're using Nostr, but still inherently gain all the properties of this decentralized, censorship-resistant protocol. So they get it for free. They don't know that they're actually using Nostr, maybe, but they still get all the benefits from it.
All right, so we've talked a lot about the values that you have and the trade-offs you're making. One thing that I've sort of seen persistently in all of the spaces that you guys are in is that because it's decentralized, because there are many clients, getting standards tends to be very rough, right? And standardizing on something or getting people to agree, getting different clients to agree tends to be really rough. And you have some weird situations where, you know, like one company doesn't want to do one thing, and another company doesn't want to do another thing. Like, do you see that as like a feature, a bug? How do you think about that aspect of it? Because clearly from a centralized perspective, you could just sort of dictate okay, this is going to be the new thing from now on. Here's our API. You program against it or not. You know, with something like what you guys are working on, it tends to be a lot more subtle. It takes longer. Like, how do you think about standards and how to do it, and how's that change your development and things like that?
It's a lot harder. I mean, Bitcoin Core is kind of a different example where they have just one code base. There's not really any competitors to Bitcoin Core. Now, they have their own challenges, not saying their job's easy, it's not. But in Lightning, it's kind of like web browsers. You know, we have Safari, Firefox, Chrome, whatever. We got to make those things work together with each other. And I think it slows us down a lot. There's a lot of work that goes into, okay, we have to agree. You know, how are you going to get Google and Apple to agree on how the web should work is essentially what we're doing with Lightning. But I think it actually refines the process a lot. It slows us down, but we end up with sharper protocols that work better, are more future focused, and are more like effective for ready for problems we're not seeing at the moment. So I think it's kind of like, you know, it's pressure that makes diamonds sort of thing. And I think like, particularly for work, I've been working in Lightning for a couple of years now, and I think talking to other Lightning developers, you kind of just focus on the thing in front of you, like I want to just get this thing done. Because often you're trying to just like ship the thing, you're tired of the meetings, you're tired of the bike shedding. But at the same time, we're building this thing that's supposed to be a legacy for the world forever. And it's hard to remember that when you're in the moment. And I think part of that process is it does slow us down and force us to consider the long-term future of the world.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, a lot of us work on L2 technologies on here, and we have the benefit of, you know, we don't have this hyper strict thing we have to follow. You know, we have the ability to kind of play with new ideas and experiment with them. But at the end of the day, if we all want to work together and we want all our clients to be compatible with each other, we just need to simplify the thing and make things as simple as possible, so that, you know, it's easy for anyone to spin up a new client and implement it. What went wrong with the web is that, you know, their specs got way too complicated, and even to build a browser today is like impossible. So we need to like look at what happened there and not repeat the same mistakes. And you know, so we got to keep these things simple, you know, and work together. But yeah, I mean, it's tricky. It's a lot harder than working on a centralized project.
From us on the Liquid side, I like to make a distinction, right? Because on the one side, you have the elements, which is the source code that runs the Liquid network, and Liquid is just an implementation of elements, right? So the decisions that come from the Liquid network, they come from the Liquid Federation, and they are basically who monitors and who controls the part of that. But whatever comes from the element side node, which is the open source part that we mostly care about, it's over 80% of the source code comes from Bitcoin. And basically any Bitcoin transaction should be valid on elements, right? So a big part of that is we don't get to make the decisions. We just try not to break them, right? On top of that, there are certain things that are specific to elements, and we've been going for a new model, trying to follow the Bitcoin BIPs for improvements, and basically trying to add whatever improvement that we are going to get into elements to do it through ELIPs, you know, elements improvement proposals. It's obviously something new. It's far from perfect, but it's an idea to bring people closer to the definition stage of what we are trying to add to elements, right? Something in previously, anything that was on elements, it was basically decided by Blockstream and developed by Blockstream, and basically closer to what you were saying. Basically, we were defining the standard. The idea is that we are trying to go to a more public format where we are accepting proposals before the implementation. So we are trying to work on that.
I think trying to build consensus on a decentralized sort of format is near impossible. How Nostr works is I feel like it's quite different from like Bitcoin and Lightning. It's like we're not dealing with your money, right? We're talking about decentralized publishing, so the stakes are a little bit lower. And to be honest, the Nostr protocol is quite chaotic to collaborate on, and nobody ever agrees on anything. But the protocol is not really set in stone. It's more of just like documenting what is actually out there that's implemented. Like what do the majority of popular clients and relays, what have they implemented, and it's a documentation of what actually exists today. And I think the important part is like trying to have humanizing conversations with your fellow developers and contributors, but also advocating for the end users, like understanding their struggles and trying to solve for those problems. And I think with enough persistence, you can get to a reasonable enough position.
One thing that I was thinking when you were saying about your improvements is that while things for Lightning or for Liquid or for Bitcoin, you need to keep basically a record or a compatibility with the whole history, right? If you guys make me find something that's not working, you could basically deprecate it and say, okay, we are going to accept it for 6 more months and then it's not valid anymore, which even though the day-to-day is more complicated, it's easier to erase part of the history, I guess.
And that's happened multiple times. There's like some old notes, they just like will just look broken, but all those notes are probably just deleted by now because we don't have a linear chain that we're keeping around forever. We can just discard notes and just start anew, so it's kind of refreshing.
Damn, that sounds very convenient.
All right, so I think the question that, like from a long-term perspective that everyone has is, I've learned in this space that you always have to follow the money, right? You always have to follow the money because ultimately that ends up dictating a lot of stuff. And obviously you guys are sponsored by different companies. How do you prevent the capture of what you're working on by centralized institutions that will push the protocol in a particular direction that might not be as pro-freedom tech as you guys currently are?
Oh, that's a hard question. Who wants to go first?
This is why I've been really focused at DOMS to never like take VC funding. I'm not saying never, but it's just like, I don't want to be captured by anyone or anything. Like it's too early in the protocol. So we need to be figuring out like these like base level solutions, like how we're going to build this out in the future. And it's really important not for that to be captured, at least at this time. There's going to be companies that are going to be building like the existing systems on Nostr. But if we can resist that as long as possible and try to build the Bitcoin way, maybe through some type of value for value system, that's what I've been exploring. And if we can achieve it that way, maybe that'll lead to more healthy outcomes.
Okay, I have another thought about a little bit. I think that like Lightning has this benefit in that maybe I'm blind to it, but I don't see a lot of ways somebody could come in and propose a protocol change that benefits like some company or some nefarious motive where they could invest money to get money out in the long run. Hopefully that's true. Even if it wasn't the case, it is an open protocol, and I think we're developing two things simultaneously. We're developing Lightning implementations and the Lightning protocol. And the Lightning implementation, can get captured for sure, right? Like I know Cash App literally is captured by a great company, but that is captured, right? But they can't really capture the protocol. And maybe part of the fact that there are so many companies working on it in unison makes it harder to do. It's too much in the limelight to do sneaky stuff.
For us, it's basically with Elements, it's somewhat similar. Being everything open source and inheriting most of what we do from Bitcoin, it's really hard to have a request that really goes against what it stands for, right? And everything that we could do that would go against Bitcoin, it would go basically against ourselves. So hopefully we won't have to face corporate pressure to do something like that, because it would be technically counterproductive.
Yeah, and for Nostr, there's like corporate control and also like government control, right? And maybe like one problem right now that we have on Nostr is like moderation for things that are, I don't know, explicit like CSAM. Like we don't want like illegal materials to be posted that majority of people agree that it shouldn't be online. So like how do we build the tools to actually be able to sort of like filter that out? But while still making the trade-offs of like not being able to censor people. I think that's really important to do.
You hire Giacomo to do that.
Well, aren't those two the same things though? Filtering and censoring. Like you're saying we should filter some things, but not be. It sounds like you're kind of asking for a square circle or something. How can you make something that's filterable and not censorable?
No, it's interesting because we get this question asked us a lot. It's like, how do you deal with the moderation issue on Nostr? I don't think there's like I think the issue is like this idea of one entity having control of all the moderation and all the logic that goes into moderation. If you have a free market of different tools that are like filtering and censoring in different ways, then users can choose which clients and which relays they want to use for the types of content they want to see. The minute you move to a decentralized moderation scheme, then things just become way more palatable.
Is the idea that relay nodes would censor or your own client would censor?
Either one. Like a relay can make a decision which notes they accept. Like maybe they just don't accept links at all, like image links. So it's only text. That's filtering. Clients might. So one thing in DOMIS is we're going to have a CSAM filter, so AI can automatically recognize child porn and just hide it or remove it immediately. So these are options you can turn on, and there's going to be many different ways. But you don't have to use DOMIS. You can use another client that doesn't have that feature for some reason. But yeah.
It's kind of like a self-censorship. You choose what you censor yourself from.
Yeah, and so the point is, providing the tools that allow users to choose what they want to see. It's not censorship. It's just a choice.
Yeah. Right, and there could be like a relay that does host child porn, and that is illegal in most countries or all countries. And the government can choose to go and find them and like, take that down. But me as user, I know that is wrong, and I don't want to subscribe to that. And so I have the choice of not following that relay, not using the client.
Well, so we have this tension of sort of like a lot of centralizing forces, but you kind of have to continue pushing as a developer, right? But the developers, in turn, are often funded by a lot of these companies. How do you see sort of like decentralized development, developers that are sort of more independent? How do you see that getting funded in the future? Because that seems to me the big thing that we're all trying to solve for, not just at your guys' level, but also at the Bitcoin core level. Like funding developers and making sure that they are sort of pushing for it to be freedom tech rather than sort of somewhat captured tech.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know Jack Dorsey just put up $10 million into the OpenSats fund, right? But I feel like, this is not a long-term answer, but the OpenSats board are people that I think are genuinely believe in that kind of stuff. And even though it's Jack Dorsey's money, they're the ones deciding where it goes. And I think that works great today. Long-term, like in 10, 20 years, how's that going to work is a harder question. Like, what is a sustainable solution to it? And honestly, I think the best answer is just the more distributed we can get donations and grants, the better. There's a trade-off there where you want the funds to go to the things that are actually worthwhile, not necessarily the most showy. So if every Bitcoin developer has to go on a road show to raise money, you're not going to attract all the best talent, right? You're going to get people that are good at road shows. And I don't really know the answer to that, and I think it's probably going to be an awkward tension, maybe forever.
Yeah, I've been really exploring, what does it look like when we have hundreds of millions of users on Nostr who all have a Lightning wallet, and they can support anyone who's creating content of any kind. In the early days of Nostr, I was probably making like $5,000 to $10,000 just from Lightning Zaps, and that was sustaining my development. And because it was just people paying for, whenever I do a new update for DOMIS, everyone would just zap me. I'm like, wow, this could actually work, until Apple removed Note Zaps, but that's a whole other thing. So I really truly believe in that model, and especially if we scale up the number of users who are using Lightning and zapping and supporting the users that are creating the content. I think that is one possible future, and I want to see that happen. So,
I'm not exactly very optimistic with regard to that. I think the company or the private company sponsors content is gonna be their sponsor development. I don't come from the Bitcoin side. My background is mostly on open source operating systems, and for me, looking at the Linux kernel source code, if you look at the which is basically where we can strive for, or at least what we can use as an example of something that's been open source for way longer than Bitcoin. And if you look at the commits, a big part in the last few years has been from Microsoft. Microsoft has been the biggest supporter of the Linux kernel, right? And I know what I'm saying sounds stupid, but it is like that. So I'm not very optimistic with regard to the future of Bitcoin being out of the not the control, but out of the sponsorship of big companies.
I think Linux is a good example. It's probably like, for those that don't know, Linux is the thing that runs like all of the computers of the world, more or less, and it's an open source project that, in theory, is funded by donations, and in practice has all of these same nuances to it. So it's interesting to look for them for examples.
I think ultimately, to try to be self-sustainable, you want to provide like a value for value proposition. Like you want to provide some kind of service or product that is valuable to your end user, end customer. And so you really have to think about like what features should I actually really build? And like when you're starting off, it's hard because you don't have any capital, and like having an open SATs or something like that to give you open source grants with no strings attached, that's super useful. You're bootstrapping that process. But I think anyone who's working on open source that needs to sort of like have that sustained long term needs to think about how do I, like what kind of features should I build?
Well, so this idea of, I guess, value for value and not having money come from, large companies or something like that is a really good sentiment. But don't we have like the free rider problem? I mean, most people don't want to donate. Is that something that you guys think about? Like, how do you get a more decentralized funding scheme? Because we obviously don't want the Microsofts of the world like heavily influencing Linux.
It's a great question. I feel like when I talk to normies, and I'll be like, hey, I work on Bitcoin stuff. I'm like, oh, cool. You work on explaining Bitcoin programming. They're like, you must get paid a lot. And I'm like, no. And I think it's just inherent to the property of Bitcoin is that we're making the world's money, but we don't own it, right? Which is inherently different than like every other, all of them, more or less. So anyway, that's just a story. You want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are willing to do it. It's just right now it's kind of hard to donate. If we just make it easier and make it as easy as a like on Twitter to donate to someone, and just remove the friction, and that's kind of like what I've been exploring on Damus. And I noticed like we had like right now on Twitter there is a Zap button on a profile, but no one goes there and uses it. The minute I add it to the notes, it's like I just started getting an insane amount of like Zap. So I just realized it's a design issue. If you just make it easy and make it so simple, then maybe more people will be donating. So.
Go ahead. There's one more point I wanted to add, is that like I think we do have a free rider problem. I say problem in air quotes though. Like, what percent of people that are investing in Bitcoin are donating some of what they get back into Bitcoin? Very, very, very little. But if that percentage stays the same and Bitcoin goes up like 10x in value, then the funding will go up proportionally, right? So we won't be like rich like we worked on Ethereum or something. But the funding should hopefully naturally increase.
Again, coming from the open source world, I think the biggest donations they come from the users that donate their own time, either to develop or to test or to prepare things or even to give support to other users, right? So it's I think it's something that is very undervalued, right? And I think he's been a big example of that. He mentioned he works for Cash App, but does this important development on the side, right? So I think it's a classic example of the biggest support that we get in the open source community, right? Someone who donates their own time and time doing things with family and things like that in order to support a project that they see a future with.
Maybe we should pass around a basket. Everyone put some sats in the basket as it comes by.
And I don't think we can completely eliminate the free rider problem. I think that's always going to be there. But I think there's like a base level number of things that you can provide for free. And there are additional things that you can provide that are actually quite useful, that aren't essential to the core protocol, core products. And I think, I don't know, having subscriptions or having some sort of like payments for those kinds of features, I think that could be a pretty useful value proposition.
Well, so that brings up sort of like another aspect of sustainability, because really when we're talking about all of these technologies and the things that bring freedom, it's really like a very long-term endeavor. And at least for me, one of the things I think about with respect to this is how do you make sure that the values themselves are valued by the next generation of people that come in? So for you guys, how do you view that, and how do you think you instill that sort of same values ethic that you guys clearly have? You articulated it at the beginning of this talk. How do you do that for the next generation of people that come in and the generation after that and so on?
Who wants to go first? That's another hard one.
So we just create a religion, and then we have a bunch of scriptures, and then we have priests, and that's how we do it.
For me, it all starts with education, right? And I don't have kids, but I have my niece, and one of the first presents that I gave her when she was little was a Raspberry Pi, right? Obviously, not the most open source device. It has its own things, but it was a way to get her to understand open source tools and to be aware that not everything is Apple and Microsoft, right? So that's where I see us preparing for a future, right? Doing our own work, basically the same thing that we do with Orange Pilling people, trying to go person to person, basically preparing them for what's to come, because it's in our, I think it's in our best interest, and it's not in the company's best interest.
It is concerning to see, I have a 7-year-old, and the first kind of computing device they interact with is either a tablet or a phone, and they're getting pushed into these platforms with these app stores which are not free, and they're completely captured, and that's a huge risk. If that's the way that our children are interacting with technology, they might not. They're basically entering a less free world. From what I grew up on, which was just a computer, and you can run all the programs that you want to run. So yeah, technology-wise, if we can encourage our children to actually understand computers and why it's important to have free and open technology and hardware, that's going to be very important going forward.
I also agree Bitcoiners should have lots of kids to get more Bitcoin ethos out there. But I do think, if we look back at U.S. history after the Civil War, 1860, 70, 80, 90, there was a period where the U.S. really cared about hard money. And if you look at what the presidents were campaigning about, it was literally all hard money issues. So I think at least in this country, in the past, people have cared a lot, and I bet they can care again. We probably should have to show them. If we get in a world where the U.S. dollar is inflating away and Bitcoin's taking over, and they can see the prosperity, I think that will be a very compelling nudge into this direction. And you combine that with educational stuff, talking about this kind of stuff that what we're doing today, those two combined can, without creating a religion, I think can get a lot of people on board.
Yeah, I agree with what folks said about education. I think teaching folks about what problems exist in the world and trying to understand how to solve that. I think also as developers, we have a duty to go out into society, talk with people, understand their struggles, and try to build a protocol, build a system where it actually addresses those things effectively.
Even though we hate talking to people, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so you really do need a lot of education, a lot of the things that you guys are talking about to sort of instill these values. But in a sense, this is a battle that we've been fighting the whole time, right? It's freedom versus slavery. And people kind of like slavery.
It's weird.
Yeah, it is, but you can kind of understand it, right? Because it is convenient and
it's a lot simpler.
Yeah, it's a lot simpler and so on.
There's a lot of self-responsibility of holding your own keys, and so yeah, a lot of people can't handle that level of anxiety when they're worrying about day-to-day things like paying their bills, and so having mommy state to take care of you and you don't have to worry about anything. I think that's attractive to a lot of people, which is unfortunate. But
a lot of people have to learn the hard way. When you log into your bank and your bank's you cannot withdraw money, that'll teach you real quick. And it's happening in more and more countries. It feels as of late. And I think education can feel so fighting an uphill battle. It's a struggle. You're people don't care. I just want to use my bank. I got my credit card, whatever. But if you can plant enough of that seed, the day the bank goes down, like Silicon Valley Bank almost did for a moment there, then people are going to remember those bits of education that you got through, and they're going to be amplified in their memory. But not that it makes it any easier; it's still a very uphill battle.
I think one of the biggest issues that we face is that there is no follow-up, right? I don't mind having a custodial Lightning wallet as an entry point, right? But if after a year or more you haven't moved on, then it's your fault if you lose your money.
That's why I really like LB. They'll actually send you an email if you have like more than like $1,000 worth of sats in their Lightning wallet. They're like, please remove that and put it in your cold storage. So yeah, more stuff like that.
We'll nag everyone until they believe in hard money.
I think ultimately it's giving people choices. Like you have the choice to choose the custodial route, and if you want that, there's nothing wrong with that. But there's also these other options, and the point is to not restrict people to only one choice where they don't have that kind of freedom.
But one of the things to follow up on that is to be aware of your choices, right? Because if you are using a custodial wallet and you don't know what those implications are, right, and you don't want to follow up, then you can't blame anybody if they rug pull you.
I think everyone just go for it.
So exactly, and so it goes back to education, and we're never going to win this battle. I think, like we will constantly have to fight the good fight and keep educating people and keep building solutions to solve these kinds of problems.
I think like we're living in a unique era in history where banks just don't fail anymore, and that wasn't true for most of history. If you look at like old banks, how were the buildings physically built? They were these like gigantic, magnificent-looking things because they were trying to send the image they're not going to fail, and like banks had to work hard to market themselves as not failing. And since we have the Federal Reserve bailing out banks forever, you can watch the architecture of banks shrink and shrink. Now they're just like office buildings, right, with nothing about them. And banks don't bother even trying to convince people that they won't fail. And I think that's happened because of it's a result of the Federal Reserve bailing out banks forever. And I think that game is going to end eventually. Eventually, like the chicken's going to come home, and it's going to be a collapse of the banking system as it is today, and something else will have to come replace it.
All right, so one final sort of thing that I want to talk about. So we've been talking about freedom tech, and I think the flip side of freedom is responsibility, personal responsibility in particular, because once you're not ceding control to somebody else, well, you've ceded control to yourself. That means you have to be really responsible with your stuff. What are some ways do you think that that the tech that you guys are working on will help people be more responsible? And what are your hopes? Like, give yourself the benefit of the doubt. Everything in that you're hoping for with the technology that you're working on does everything that you want it to. How do you hope that people change as a result? In terms of responsibility, and how do they handle life, and how do they, I guess, ultimately build towards civilization?
At least for me, it's really hard to balance the security with the simplicity of things. One of the things that I'd like to think that could help with that is, for example, be verified, right? You can create a very secure set of words and then derive from that whatever set of words or whatever initialization you want, but you can always go back to the beginning. So basically educating people on making the process of security simpler so that it's not overwhelming, because I think that's the biggest concern. It's the responsibility of basically not giving your secrets to anybody is overwhelming.
If I'm saying like all the things I wish were done in Lightning were done, what would it look like? It'd be beautiful. He mentioned Greenlight earlier, and that's the thing not everyone knows about. Also goes by VLS, but the end result of that plus other things would be that you could run a node. You could run a Lightning, essentially air quotes, run a Lightning node on your phone, that you have complete control over, but is hosted by somebody else. So this is sort of like an in-between self-custody and someone else custodying. What you're doing is you're offloading the complicated bits to some hosting architecture over there in the cloud somewhere, and then you just get an app that works, and you control the keys to your own node. And in that world, like, custodying your own Lightning gets a lot easier and a lot simpler.
Yeah, I think there's like this image of responsibility. It sounds like, oh, this is going to be an arduous task. This is going to be scary. This could be uncertain. Maybe we just need to rebrand it as like, look, this is actually empowering. Like, there's so much of a part of the world that we live in that is so uncertain, and like we don't know if like our bank's going to fail. We don't know what's going to happen. There's some political turmoil, but maybe this is our small thing you can hold into your hands. Like, I have control over my life. This is an empowering thing. And that should make people feel happy, and maybe we should just market it that way, because that's really what it is.
People are so not used to that, right? People are like, oh yeah, I own stocks. Like, okay, where are the stocks? Oh, they're with the brokerage. They have your stocks. Like, everything that you own is like that. People are not comfortable with or used to it.
How many of us have been asked when we are helping someone set up their Bitcoin wallet, okay, what if I forget it? Who do I call?
Right. Yeah. Bitcoin forgot my password. Didn't Peter Schiff say that once?
It's your responsibility, guy. Get over it.
Yeah, and even though it's sort of like self-responsibility, I think there's a lot of stuff that we can do to make our tools better. And I'm going to sound like a broken record again, but like education is really important. And so if we can build the education into the tooling that we're building, I think that goes a long ways to actually educating these people to be able to take responsibility for their own sort of like actions and stuff like that.
I like your point earlier, like talk about the positive feeling of like being self-sovereign with your money. Like, got to build that up. Because okay, if you ever move like Bitcoin through cold storage, first off, it's terrifying. But then once you get it done, you're like, whoa, it's this feeling of like freedom from the world and its strings that's, there's nothing like it. It's hard to describe.
Well, I would describe it as being freed from fiat money, right?
Yes.
That's really what it is. Anyway, thank you guys so much for talking about Freedom Tech. Hopefully you guys are a little bit more inspired to maybe donate to some of these projects, to participate, to do the things that will bring about the future that I think all of us in this room are looking forward to. Decentralized, self-sovereign world where we can be free and do things that we want to do instead of being under the thumb of authoritarianism. Thank you, guys.
Let's go.
Thank you. Applause.
Thank you.
Hey guys, we're actually right on time. Just 2 minutes before I let you go to lunch. Please be back in an hour and a half. We're going to do some awesome giveaways. This is not one of the giveaways because this is a very limited edition tequila bottle. Wait, let me turn the light on. I think it actually lights up. There's one more. Wait, there we go. All right. Wow, so this conference has actually been always known for everyone sitting in seats listening to speakers, but this year, everyone is like in the back. I'm like, whoa, we have to, as we have some awesome sponsors everybody wants to talk to this year. This is incredible. So, Jonas, come up. I just want to show this guys real quick, and then I'm letting you go to lunch. This is one of 21 limited edition bottles of Tone Vase tequila from Bear Wood. It's very hard to get my attention in the space for a project. It has to be either Bitcoin only, and even then, it's a struggle. But if it's related to like alcohol or poker, it's a lot easier to catch my attention. So we're not going to keep you here to explain it all, but please go and see Jonas in the back about their innovative patent technology. I'll let him say a few words real quick, and then we'll let you go.
Yeah, I know you guys are probably just as hungry as I am, so I'll make it really quick. But my company, Bearwood Spirits, has a patented bottling design. We've got a piece of wood running through the cork, and it's exposed to the air at the top. And so you're actually actively aging the spirit in the bottle, just like it would be if it was in a barrel. And so for this conference, I produced this limited edition Tone Vase tequila. This is actually bottle 1 of 21. I've got 14 bottles left in the back. And yeah, come check it out. I've got a little bit of a bottle that I've been aging for about 3 weeks. I've already peeled the tab. It's been aging for about 3 weeks. And I'm pouring little samples there in the back if you want to try some.
Right, so they don't automatically age. Like once you take the alcohol out of the barrel, it stops aging. You put it in this bottle, and then there's a tab on top. The moment you take that tab off, it starts to age again, but with diminishing returns. So like you peel the tab after about a month or two, that's probably like, it's like a second derivative. It'll keep aging, but a lot slower after that, something like that. So, but he has the details of it. I absolutely love this idea. It's great. And yeah, and the tequila inside to begin with is really good. Obviously, we didn't make our own. And all right, we'll let you go to lunch, or you can be like me and fast and wait for that carnivory dinner. You do need a gold bracelet to get into the carnivory dinner. If you don't have a gold bracelet, but you think you're on the list for the carnivory dinner, come and see us at the registration table. Okay, it will be a gold sparkly bracelet for the carnivory dinner.